In the heart of a bustling city where ancient traditions meet the rush of modern life, an aging queen, whispered to be fading from the public eye, stepped out unexpectedly one spring day. With a simple smile, she bridged generations and reminded the world that true strength often hides behind quiet determination. This is the story of how Queen Elizabeth II turned a routine ceremony into a moment of pure, heartfelt connection. The streets of London hummed with the usual chaos on that May morning in 2022. People hurried to work, dodging rain puddles and checking their phones for train delays. The Elizabeth Line, a massive new underground railway stretching across the city, had been years in the making. It promised to cut travel times, link neighborhoods that felt worlds apart, and carry millions of passengers each year. Named after Queen Elizabeth II to honor her 70 years on the throne, the line was a symbol of progress built on a foundation of history. But the Queen herself was facing her own challenges. At 96 years old, she had slowed down. Mobility issues kept her from many events, and whispers in the palace spoke of her growing frailty. Just days earlier, she had missed the state opening of Parliament, a tradition she rarely skipped. Her son, Prince Charles, had stepped in, reading her speech for the first time. The public worried. Would the Platinum Jubilee celebrations in June be her last big moment? Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Edward, her youngest son, would represent her at the Elizabeth Line's opening at Paddington Station. It seemed sensible. Edward was reliable, always ready to support the family. Behind the scenes, engineers and workers buzzed with excitement. The line had cost billions, faced delays from construction woes and the pandemic, but now it was ready. Stations gleamed with fresh tiles and digital screens. Staff in crisp uniforms practiced their greetings, hoping for a smooth day. The Queen, resting at Windsor Castle, watched the news reports. She had followed the project's progress for years, even visiting a construction site back in 2016. Something stirred in her. Despite the doctor's advice to rest, she felt a pull to be there. It was her name on the line, after all. Quietly, she told her aides to prepare. No big announcement, just a simple plan to surprise everyone. As the sun rose higher, Paddington Station filled with invited guests, transport officials, workers who had dug the tunnels, and a few lucky members of the public. They chatted about the Queen's absence, understanding but a bit disappointed. Little did they know, a royal car was already on its way from Windsor, carrying a woman determined to show she was still very much in charge of her story. The air crackled with anticipation, unaware that history was about to add a delightful twist. As the royal car glided through London's traffic, Queen Elizabeth sat in the back, her hands folded calmly. She wore a bright yellow coat and matching hat, chosen to reflect the sunny optimism of the day. The color popped against the gray cityscape, a beacon of cheer. Her walking stick rested beside her, a new companion in these later years, but she held her head high. Prince Edward, riding along, smiled at her decision. He had been prepared to handle the event alone, but now he was proud to stand by her side. At the palace, staff had scrambled to adjust plans. Security teams double-checked routes, and the Queen's dresser ensured every detail was perfect. Word leaked just enough to the organizers at Paddington. Whispers of a possible surprise, but they kept it quiet to maintain the magic. Back at the station, the crowd grew. Reporters set up cameras, expecting a standard ribbon cutting. Transport for London boss Andy Byford paced nervously, his tie straight, script in hand. He had met the Queen before and knew her sharp wit. Workers like tunnel digger Maria Gonzalez stood proudly in her hard hat, sharing stories of long nights underground. "This line will change lives," she said to a colleague. "Faster commutes mean more time with family." The Elizabeth Line wasn't just tracks and trains, it was a lifeline for a city recovering from lockdowns. As the car pulled up discreetly, hearts raced in the control room. The Queen stepped out slowly, aided by an equerry, but her smile lit up the entrance. Gasps rippled through the staff, who spotted her first. "It's really her," someone whispered. She moved with grace, waving off extra help, determined to walk the short distance. Edward walked beside her, chatting lightly about the weather. Inside, the station's modern design welcomed her. Escalators humming, signs glowing in purple, the color chosen for the line. Officials lined up, bowing as she entered. Byford approached, beaming. "Your Majesty, what an honor." She nodded warmly, her eyes twinkling. "I've been looking forward to this." The surprise was electric. Phones buzzed with texts to absent friends. "The Queen's here." Outside, passers-by paused, sensing something special. One young commuter, phone in hand, snapped a quick photo through the barriers. The Queen paused to greet a group of school children invited for the occasion. "What do you think of the new trains?" she asked one boy. He stammered, "They're fast, ma'am." Her laugh echoed softly, easing the tension. As she made her way deeper into the station, the real ceremony began to unfold, blending royal tradition with everyday London life. Deep in Paddington Station, the hum of excitement grew louder. Queen Elizabeth approached the ticket barriers, where a special setup awaited. A senior Oyster card, preloaded for the occasion, sat ready. She had used public transport before, famously riding the Underground during World War II, but this was different. At 96, with the world watching her every step, she tapped the card on the reader like any commuter. The barrier opened with a beep, and she chuckled. "It works," she said, drawing laughs from the crowd. Prince Edward grinned beside her, proud of her ease. Transport officials explained the system. Contactless payments, seamless connections across the city. She listened intently, asking about accessibility for those with disabilities. "We've added lifts and wide gates," Byford replied. Nodding approvingly, she moved on. The group walked to a sleek new platform, where a purple train waited. Engineers pointed out features, air-conditioned cars, real-time updates on screens. One worker, a young apprentice named Tom, shared how the project employed thousands during tough times. "It gave me a start," he said shyly. The Queen patted his arm. "Well done." Her words meant everything. Cameras flashed as she unveiled the plaque. It read, "The Elizabeth line is officially opened by Her Majesty the Queen." She pulled the cord steadily, revealing the shiny brass. Applause erupted. In her brief remarks, she spoke simply. "This line will serve London for generations." No grand speech, just genuine warmth. Around her, faces beamed. A nurse commuting nearby peeked in, touched by the sight. "She's inspiring," she thought, remembering the Queen's messages during the pandemic. The visit lasted only 10 minutes, but it felt timeless. As she prepared to leave, she shook hands with more staff, thanking them personally. One cleaner, originally from Jamaica, curtsied deeply. "God bless you, ma'am." The Queen smiled wider. Edward escorted her to the lift, waving to the cheering group. Outside, news spread like wildfire. Reporters rushed to file stories. Queen surprised delight. Commuters outside clapped as her car departed. Back inside, the station returned to normal, but with a glow. Workers high-fived, knowing they had been part of something special. As the Queen's car pulled away from Paddington, the station erupted in cheers that echoed down the platforms. Word had spread beyond the barriers. Commuters outside craned their necks, phones aloft, capturing glimpses of the yellow-clad figure. Social media lit up instantly. Tweets poured in. "Saw the Queen today? She's amazing at 96, with heart emojis and British flags." News channels interrupted broadcasts, showing footage of her buying the ticket. "A ray of sunshine on a cloudy day," one anchor said. At Buckingham Palace, aides monitored the reaction, relieved and thrilled. The Queen's spontaneous choice had boosted spirits ahead of the Jubilee. Public opinion polls later showed a surge in affection for the monarchy. People remembered her resilience. Despite canceling other events, she chose this one, linking her legacy to everyday progress. In homes across the UK, families discussed it over dinner. "She's still got it," a grandfather told his grandkids, sharing stories of her coronation. The Elizabeth line opened to the public days later, with passengers boarding the first trains. Many touched the plaque reverently, whispering thanks. For workers like Maria and Tom, it was a career highlight. "She made us feel valued," Maria said in an interview. The surprise visit humanized the Queen, showing her not as a distant icon, but as someone who cared about her people's daily lives. Critics who questioned the monarchy's relevance paused, touched by the moment. Internationally, headlines praised her, Queen Elizabeth's charming comeback. It reminded the world of her enduring spirit. As evening fell, the Queen returned to Windsor, tired but content. She watched the news replay, smiling at the public's joy. Edward called to check in, and they laughed about the ticket machine. In that brief appearance, she had gifted London a memory that would ride the rails forever. Back at Windsor Castle that evening, Queen Elizabeth reflected quietly. The day's energy lingered, a reminder of why she had pushed through discomfort. The Elizabeth line wasn't just infrastructure. It was a thread connecting her long reign to the future. In the months that followed, the Jubilee celebrations unfolded with parades and concerts, but that surprise visit stood out as a personal triumph. Health challenges continued, yet she drew strength from such moments. The public carried the image of her in yellow, a symbol of hope amid uncertainty. Riders on the line often glanced at signs bearing her name, feeling a subtle pride. "It's like she's watching over us," one passenger joked. The event inspired stories, books, documentaries, even a children's tale about a queen and her train. For Prince Edward, it was a lesson in quiet leadership. He later spoke of her determination. She wanted to be there for the people. As 2022 progressed, the Queen's appearances grew rarer, leading to her passing in September. But the Elizabeth line opening became a cherished memory, capturing her essence, duty, warmth, and a touch of surprise. Today, as trains speed through tunnels, her legacy endures, carrying London forward with the same grace she showed that day. Months passed after that sunny day at Paddington Station. The Elizabeth line became part of daily life in London. Trains ran on time. People filled the seats every morning and evening. Children pointed at the bright purple signs and asked their parents why the line had a Queen's name. Many adults smiled and told the story again. They spoke about the old lady in yellow who came when no one expected her. They remembered her gentle tap on the ticket machine and the way her smile made everyone feel warm inside. The memory stayed alive even as seasons changed. In small cafes near the stations, people still talked about it. A young woman named Sarah worked at a coffee shop close to Liverpool Street. Every day, she served coffee to tired commuters. One rainy afternoon in late summer, she heard two older men at the corner table. They were talking about the Queen. One said, "I still cannot believe she showed up that day." The other nodded and said it was like she wanted to tell us she was still here with us. Sarah listened quietly. She had been there too on that opening day. She had stood behind the crowd, holding her phone high to take a picture. When she looked at the photo, later she saw the Queen's face clearly. The smile was small but real. Sarah kept that picture on her phone. Sometimes when the day felt too long, she looked at it and felt a little stronger. Across the city in a school in East London, a teacher named Mr. Khan used the story in his class. He showed the children a short video of the Queen walking slowly to the platform. The children sat very still. One girl named Aisha raised her hand. So why did she come when she was not feeling well? Mr. Khan thought for a moment. He said because she loved the people of this city. She wanted to share a happy moment with them. Aisha looked at the screen again. She whispered, "I want to be kind like that when I grow up." After class, the children drew pictures. Some drew trains. Some drew the Queen waving. One boy drew a big yellow coat with a smiling face inside. Mr. Khan pinned all the pictures on the wall. Parents who came to pick up their children stopped to look. They smiled too. Far away from London in a quiet village in Scotland, an old man named Angus read the newspaper every morning. He had followed the royal family since he was a boy. When he saw the picture of the Queen at Paddington, he felt tears in his eyes. He remembered the war years when a young princess worked on engines and learned to drive trucks. Angus thought to himself, "She never stopped working for us." He wrote a letter to a local paper. In simple words, he said, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving us one more happy surprise." The paper printed his letter. Many readers wrote back. They shared their own memories. The small village felt connected to the big city in a new way. In London itself, the line kept growing busier. New shops opened near the stations. People started new jobs because they could travel faster. A mother named Fatima moved her family to a cheaper home farther out. Before the Elizabeth line, she worried about long journeys to work. Now she reached her office in less time. She had more hours to spend with her little son. One evening, she took him on the train, just for fun. They sat together and watched the tunnels flash by. The boy asked, "Mummy, is the Queen riding with us?" Fatima laughed softly. She said in a way, "Yes. Her name is on the train, and her kindness is in our hearts." Meanwhile, at Windsor Castle, the days grew quieter for the Queen. She spent more time resting. Doctors visited often, yet she still followed the news. Her aides told her about the letters that arrived every week. People wrote to say thank you for the surprise visit. Children sent drawings. Old friends sent cards. She read many of them herself. Sometimes she smiled and said they were very kind. One afternoon, Prince Edward came to see her. He brought a small model of the purple train. He placed it on the table. "Look, ma'am, they made this for you." She touched the tiny wheels with her finger. Her eyes were soft. She said, "It turned out well, didn't it?" Edward nodded. He said, "You made it special." As autumn came, the leaves turned gold and red. The Jubilee year was ending. People looked back at all the events, parades, concerts, and parties. Yet many said the best moment was the quiet surprise at Paddington. It felt personal. It felt like the Queen had spoken directly to each person. In pubs and offices and buses, people told the story again and again. Each time the story grew a little warmer. They added small details. Someone said she laughed when the ticket beeped. Another said she asked about the new lifts for wheelchairs. Another said she looked straight into the eyes of every worker she met. One cold December evening, a group of friends met at a pub near Farringdon Station. They were the same group who had waited outside the barriers on opening day. They raised their glasses. "To the Queen," they said. "To the lady who surprised us all." They laughed and remembered the yellow coat shining under the lights. One friend named Liam pulled out his phone. He played the short video again. Everyone watched in silence. When the Queen smiled on the screen, they smiled too. The pub felt full of good feelings. Time moved forward. New trains arrived. More stations opened. The Elizabeth line stretched farther. Yet the name stayed the same. People still called it the Elizabeth line with pride. Tourists asked, "Why is it named after her?" Local people answered, "Because she came to open it herself. She came when everyone thought she would stay away." That answer made the tourists nod slowly. They understood. It was more than a name on a map. It was a promise kept. Years later, when children asked their parents about the old Queen, many stories came up. But the one about the Elizabeth line stayed special. Parents said she was very old and not well. But she wanted to see the new train. She wanted to see the happy faces. So she put on her bright coat and went. The children listened with wide eyes. They asked, did she really tap the ticket herself? Yes, the parents said. And she smiled the biggest smile when it worked. In the tunnels under London, the trains still run smoothly. Lights flicker gently. People read books, listen to music, or talk quietly. Sometimes someone looks up at the sign that says Elizabeth Line. They think of an old lady in yellow. They think of a surprise that made a whole city feel loved. The train moves on, carrying that memory forward day after day, year after year. The story never really ends. It lives in every journey. It lives in every smile. It lives in the simple idea that even when life feels heavy, a small act of kindness can light up everything. And on that one spring day in 2022, a queen gave London exactly that kind of light. The years rolled on after Queen Elizabeth II passed away in September 2022. London kept moving forward. The Elizabeth line grew stronger every day. Trains came more often. Stations felt cleaner and brighter. People from all walks of life used the line without thinking twice. It became as normal as breathing in the city. Yet the story of that surprise visit in May 2022 never faded. It stayed alive in conversations big and small. People pointed to the purple signs and said, remember when the Queen came herself. She was 96 and not well, but she wanted to be there. That memory made the line feel special, not just like metal tracks and concrete tunnels. By early 2023, the number of passengers climbed fast. In the first full year, more than 150 million people rode the Elizabeth Line. That was way more than anyone thought possible after the hard times of the pandemic. Workers at the stations noticed the change. A ticket checker named Raj at Tottenham Court Road Station smiled every morning as crowds poured in. He told his friends this line is busier than we ever dreamed. People come from far-out places like Reading and Shinfield now. They skip the old slow ways. They choose the fast, smooth ride instead. Families took day trips just to see the new parts of the city. Children pressed their faces against the windows, watching the lights zoom by. In homes across London, parents told bedtime stories about the Queen and the train. A father named David sat with his daughter Lily one quiet evening. He said, "Do you know who made this line feel like home?" Lily shook her head. David explained it was the old Queen. She wore a bright yellow coat and surprised everyone. She tapped a ticket like we do every day. Lily giggled. "Did she really do that, Daddy?" "Yes," David said. "And because she did people feel proud when they ride." Lily hugged her teddy bear tighter. "I want to ride tomorrow." The next morning, they took the train to the park. Lily waved at the driver as they passed. The driver waved back. Small moments like that kept the warmth going. Businesses grew around the stations. New shops opened. Cafes filled with chatter. In Woolwich, a young woman named Nadia started a bakery. She chose the spot because the Elizabeth Line made it easy for customers to come. People from central London walked in for fresh bread. Nadia hung a small picture of the Queen on the wall. When someone asked why, she said she brought luck to this place. Customers nodded. They bought extra pastries to share. The bakery did well. Nadia hired more helpers. Jobs appeared where there were none before. The line did not just carry people. It carried new chances for life. Tourists came in bigger numbers too. They asked guides about the Queen. "Why is it called the Elizabeth Line?" The guides answered with pride. Because she opened it herself in a surprise. She was old but full of spirit. Tourists took photos of the plaque she unveiled. It still said, "Officially opened by Her Majesty the Queen on Tuesday, 17 May 2022. People touched the brass gently. They felt connected to history. One visitor from America wrote in her notebook, "This is more than a train. It is a story of kindness and strength." As time went on, the line hit big milestones. By late 2023, it carried over 200 million journeys. That was faster growth than planned. Trains ran every few minutes, even in the quiet hours. People trusted it. They planned their days around it. A nurse named Claire finished her long shift at a hospital near Paddington. She caught the last train home to Abbeywood. She sat down tired but happy. The smooth ride helped her rest. She thought back to the news clips of the Queen. Claire whispered, "Thank you, ma'am. You made my commute easier." In 2024, the numbers kept rising. More than 220 million people rode in 1 year alone. The line became the busiest railway service in the whole United Kingdom. Stations like Farringdon and Liverpool Street buzzed with life. People from different countries met on the same platform. They smiled and said hello. Languages mixed in the air. The Elizabeth Line turned strangers into neighbors for a short while. A student from Pakistan named Ahmed studied late at university. He took the train back to his flat in Ilford. He listened to music and watched the city lights. He felt safe and calm. The surprise visit years ago seemed far away, but it still mattered. Communities changed too. In East London, new homes sprang up near stations. Families moved in because travel became simple. A grandmother named Rose lived in a quiet street close to Custom House. She used to feel stuck at home. Now she visited her grandchildren often. She rode the Elizabeth Line with her shopping bag. She sat next to young mothers with babies. They chatted about the weather and school. Rose said this train changed everything. Before I was alone too much. Now I have company every trip. Even after the Queen's death, her name stayed on the line. New signs went up. Purple colors shone brighter. People did not forget. They honored her in small ways. Some wore yellow scarves on the anniversary of the opening. Others left flowers at Paddington. A group of school kids made cards. They wrote, "Thank you for the surprise." "We love your train." The cards were collected and sent to the palace. King Charles saw them. He smiled and said my mother would be pleased. The line kept growing into 2025. It passed 500 million journeys since the first day. That meant 500 million people had traveled on it. Workers celebrated quietly. They shared cake in the break room. One engineer, named Mike, said, "We built something good, but the Queen made it magic." Everyone agreed. The surprise visit turned a big project into a shared treasure. Now in the tunnels under London, trains still glide along. Lights stay bright. Seats fill up morning and night. People read books or talk on phones. Sometimes someone looks up and sees the name Elizabeth line. They pause. They remember an old lady in yellow who walked slowly but with purpose. She tapped a ticket and smiled. That smile traveled farther than any train. It reached hearts across the city and beyond. The Elizabeth line is not just tracks and trains anymore. It is a living memory. It carries the past into every new day. It reminds everyone that one simple act of showing up can change things forever. Queen Elizabeth II gave London that gift. And London keeps giving it back every time a door opens and a passenger steps on. The journey goes on. The story stays warm. The smiles keep coming.